This is Tara McGinnis, and this is Theatrical Makeup Design Interactive. For the second of the two aged character makeups, I'm going to do a very scary old lady. This makeup is loosely based on that of Serefema Berman's in Ivon the Terrible Parts 1 and 2. Serefema plays the very scary, murderous aunt of Ivon the Terrible. The one who's so terrible, she makes Ivon seem like a nice guy. So, she has a number of facial features that will be in line with mine, but I will take all the lines that I was previously using that in me old age that can be twisted towards being scarier and being more angular, and ignoring the happy, friendly ones. So, when people do drawings to indicate that they are trying to indicate anger, what's interesting is they go and do drawings, lots of different kinds of drawings, but they tend to do things that are spiky, pointed, sharp, little triangles, sharp lines, pointing downward, or all in a pile at the bottom of a drawing. So, I'm going to be looking for sharp, spiky things, especially ones that tend to point downwards, and I will use those in my face. Another thing I'm going to do is, since I'm trying to make a very scary, kind of unhealthy-looking person, I'm doing some slight differences in my usual makeup colors. For instance, for my makeup tone, I'm going to start with a paler color than myself. So I get a little bit of an unwell look. However, because I'm using such a pale color, instead of using the standard highlighter, I have to use white for highlighter, because my standard highlighter is only a shade lighter than this. Another thing I'll be using is, at certain points in the shadow colors, I'm going to use bits of red in the shadow colors, as well as bits of contrasting dark green. The reason I'm going to do that is when your brain registers colors, it will look at a series of colors and edges of things, and it will make alterations in your perception of that color after a short period of time. It will alter your perception of color so that it tilts it a little bit towards its opposite. And the reason it does that is it allows you as a hunter to, by sitting and staring at something very closely, by staring at it very closely for a long period of time, you will start to get much sharper edges. And the way it does that is by taking anything that's red and making it a little bit less red, which puts a slight halo around that red that's green. It will take white and make dark. It will take dark sections and make light. In other words, it will take the opposite of whatever you're looking at and give it a slight halo that helps you to distinguish edges, which is useful for hunting and gathering. What this is called is simultaneous contrast, and it's been used by artists for years to suggest very strong shadows, where you put into a shadow of a color a little bit of the opposite color. And I'll show that in this makeup, because you can use this on your face as a way of going and suggesting very strong highlight and shadow amounts, and using that simultaneous contrast to go and make something look more extreme than you will simply using the natural colors. So, for the first part, I'm going to use my lighter color. Myself a little bit of a paler, unhealthy look. I'm making particular attention to covering up my lip color because I'm going to be making my lips smaller. So I want the edges of my lips to blend into the skin color of my face. A bit paler and more pasty looking than usual. Now, to go and put in highlights and shadows. As before, I have choices with my forehead when I crunch it up of whether it goes in like this or whether it goes up and out like that. I also have a little bit of a ridge here, not a very strong one, but where there's a line here and then the indent here. Now in this case, I want to make that forehead as sharp and threatening as possible. So I'm going to take those shadowed areas here that would occur in the divot in your head. But I'm actually going to cheat it a little bit and make it further in than it is naturally, which will narrow my forehead and make it look more angular. Then I'm going to take highlighter, which in this case is going to be the white, and run that up and down here. I'm also going to go and scrunch my forehead up to an angry look and see where that leads me. This is where my evil eyebrows are useful. So, going up like that. Now, I can't really ignore these too much if I want to use an age makeup, because they are, anytime I do anything with my forehead, going to show up. So I will use them, but I will go and take those and have them be the centerpiece of something just a little odd. Because through here, it doesn't wrinkle that much. So I can actually get away through here with putting just a bit of a shadow on the edge. That suggests that these little lines connect up with this shadow. It gives me that slightly Klingon forehead look. If I don't make it as an actual line going through here, just a shadow, the fact that there's a little bit of wrinkling going through it won't show up. So it gives something to connect these two. Then, my highlighter underneath these. And I'm going to cheat a little. Suggest that they go up here. A little bit more highlight. I have to do that brokenly though, because otherwise the fact that it crunches up here will not look terribly convincing. However, the good thing is I will take those areas with the little wrinkle in there and really make that pronounced. Because they look sort of angry. And I'll cut them. Now, mine only go up here, but I can make them go up and further. They shoot up and look really angry. I can even make them where they have extra bits going together. Oh, shadows. Highlight to either side. So it has that permanently frowning look. Now, something else I have are these areas here where they can form into little lines. They haven't actually done so because I don't spend that much time being evil. But what I can do is I can take a little bit of shadow and make it seem as though that is an important thing to the forehead. I'll do that. Because there's nothing there on the forehead that contradicts it. So I can get this extra little wrinkle here that doesn't exist. That again gives me a sort of angry looking forehead. I'm torqued off because my son isn't the czar. So, sort of angry looking forehead. Now, eyes. This thing that I have here, where I go and have little worry lines and an overlapping flap. This time, I'm going to take and shadow not only as much as will occur naturally with me with age, but even more. So those eyes go very close together, very much like a predator. So, this much would be about natural for me. In there. But I'm going to go and take that and run it in even more. It pulls in. I don't want to pull it completely because I want to make a long nose, but I want to do everything I can to make those eyes look like they belong really close together. Like an animal that will eat you, or at any rate bite. So, again, looking rather angry. This time, however, the pleats on the other side, instead of going up, because as you can see they don't really do that much of anything on this side, I can make the line go like that. So I get a sharp thing going down. This one's a little too strong. There. Now I'll take my highlighter and pull that across here. Across the bone of the brow ridge to emphasize that. So when my upper half of my face is perfectly at rest, it looks like I'm angry. Now, as I say, when I was a child, I had a lot of people who thought I was really scary because I had the evil eyebrows, and now I shave them. But Ivon the Terrible's scary evil aunt has never bothered to shave her eyebrows. And so they grow in here, where mine used to. Close together, not quite to the land of a werewolf. Another thing that tends to look scary to people is this sort of sharp thing, where you go and make a bit of a point with it. So there's an arch to it. So it points back down on the sides, but there are little bits pointing up in the middle. Again, gives you a sort of angry look. And traditionally, if it goes completely across, it's in European folklore, that's a werewolf. So, very, very evil eyebrows. And I haven't even started on the bags under the eyes yet. The bags under the eyes, this time, I will still have them go where they normally go. But this time, I want to go and make sure that they don't go back up that much. So like this is a little too far. Because I don't want them to look like a smile, I want them to look angry. And the parts that I paint down here, which, as I say, because my face doesn't move there and doesn't already have some wrinkles, I can paint them pretty much any way I want. This time, instead of making a second set of smile lines, I make another line that goes down. Looks angry. I can even do some extras in there, like that. Things pointing down. Other bits. I'm going to make an extra crow's foot. Goes here. Again, lines pointing down, very sharp. And I need to get something that goes up here, because this is looking very naked, but I'm not going to have it go up and happy and curvy. I'm just going to have it go straight across. Just enough to break that area up. So it doesn't do anything happy, it just sort of goes line, in a neat line. Next, I'm going to take a bit of the red. I'm going to use my red all the way under the eyes. Which is kind of scary looking and commonly associated with vampires. As I say, very scary ant. To go and make the most of this red and use another downward thing, I can go and make that go down here. Now this is actually a thing that's often done on heroes in Japanese theater makeup. Though usually ones that are going through extreme passion or whatever. And they go and start out down and then work their way up and go way up. But this is going to go down at both ends. Look very red. It gives you another very predatory eye look. So, and highlighter, in this case, is going to go right underneath this for the bag. And under each of these, as usual. Under this. And under there. Now, something that happens with that is because there's so much white and I'm starting so pale, I lose a lot of color. But I don't want to add color that's going to look warm and fuzzy and healthy. So this is where I can start using that green. I will use a little bit of green and work that green into parts of the shadow. And this will add color to the face while not adding anything that looks terribly healthy to the face. Plus, it will have the tendency to make everything look more extreme because your brain will read it as a shadow color of red due to your brain's tendency to get opposite colors, courtesy of simultaneous contrast, to see the opposite color when you're looking for a long time at a color. So actually having bits of this green in here will connect with that red and make you assume that it's just a shadow of a reddish tone, which your skin is. Other things, I tend to like to also throw in little bits of the red with that. And in other spots like this. Gives it really, really dark, extreme look. Frightening eyes even with a completely bland facial expression. Now, as I said, for this one, I want to make a nice long nose. We're not up to making my nose literally longer, we're just going to make it longer with paint. This is something I did when I did corrective makeup, because I have a fairly short nose. And this time, I'm going to do it even more extreme. So, highlighter to look longer, and shadow. To make that highlight show up. Very extreme. Now, something that is very good to do for noses. If you want to not only give somebody a longer nose or whatever, but you want to go and give them a wider, bigger, more flared nostril nose, you do the most ticklish thing to do in makeup. You take a very dark color, in this case black, and you line the nostrils with black. While explaining this, it's easier to do when I do the rest of the nose. If you were to do this makeup for yourself for a show, I highly recommend leaving this till last, because it does really tickle, and you can't scratch it or you get black all over your face and have to redo it. And this is where having a rendering helps, where you can go and remember that it has to be done, but you don't have to do it in order of eyes, nose, etc. So, now what's beautiful about having these extra flared nostrils is then when you do anything like do flare your nostrils, it's a little tiny thing of a nostril flare, but it exaggerates it so much that you can actually read it from about 10, 20 feet away. So it is also a popular part of kabuki makeup. Now, I want to go and do my nasolabial fold. This time, on my brush, this time I will mark as usual. And it goes. But, let's see, marking. This time, the part that doesn't exist down here, I will go, and instead of making it loop back up, I'll simply pull it down. So again, it points down. I'm also going to make sure that it goes into the edges of the nostrils, which is a good thing to do generally, but on this, I can also use it to really make the nostrils more pronounced by going and darkening it and connecting it to this shadow makeup, and even putting a little shadow around the edge of the nose. So I can make the nose seem more prominent simply by shading it more and putting highlights on it, even though I have just this tiny little button nose. And lots of highlighter. So I have a fairly solid nose going there, and it's all just paint. Imagine what you can do if you add a little wax and then add the paint. Super nose. So, I've marked where the lines are to be, both the ones that exist and the ones that don't exist but are suggestive of what I want. And I'm going to put on my highlighter again. Pull this up a little. This can look a little bit more sharp lined, this kind of stylized extreme makeup. I, by the way, recommend the movie Ivon the Terrible by Eisenstein for looking at the makeup, as well as a number of silent movies, especially German expressionist ones, where they do fairly extreme makeup for film, and it's surprisingly effective. You don't have to go and do things quite so realistically as you think you do a lot of the time. So, it gives it that very sour, down-pointing thing. Now, for the area around the mouth. On this particular one, what I want to do is make the mouth appear much smaller and more pinched. So I will take my usual red. Now, let's go and take... and do a very small amount of my lips. And that which I do, fairly sharp. So there's almost no mouth, but what's there isn't neat and rounded, it's pointed and spiky, like people's drawings of what anger is. Oh. Very small, very pulled together. Now, I take that, and on this one, I'm going to want to make sure that the edges show up very much. So I'm going to use a little bit of a dark color. Usual shadow. not so usual shadow. One that comes with the lip. Oop. So that pulls that in even more and makes the edges very clear. So I've got those happening. Now, what I want to do is take these spots, the highlight and shadow, and where's my highlighter brush? Put this down. Only this time I want to make it very pronounced. And I want to run the highlighter just above all of this. So it's almost a little white mustache that's actually on the edge of the lip, the real lip, but it pulls it down more. There. Same thing here. A little bit of white on that edge. Pull it in more. Then the shadows go. Put in something dark. You have to be careful on this part. If you make it too dark, you do end up with something that looks like a mustache, which is not always a bad choice for a scary old lady, but not necessarily one you want to make without realizing you're making it. So it pulls that in more. Now, here I've got an indent and a rounded part. This time, instead of having it start here and go up and be smiley, I'm going to have it start right here, actually on the tip of my lip, and go down. That will again suggest that the lip is smaller and higher, and give me things that are pointing downward in the appropriate fashion. Then I take that highlighter that's there and make that show up. So I get two little unhappy points going down there. Then another sharp little point. So I'm trying for a very sharp chin, but a little askew. I also want to go and do the lines that go through. But this time, I can get away with having them also have bits of shadow. Because if my mouth suggests just a little bit that a spider died there, that's not necessarily a bad thing for this person. The center of this red part, I want to go and use a little contrast in the green. So, I'm going to make that center part sink in the shadow of the green. Which pulls it in and gives it a little bit of an unhealthy tinge. Now, this time I definitely want to try and pull my cheeks in and make them look skinny. People associate being super skinny in age with being miserly or another not positive qualities. While people like it when you are skinny and young, their perception as people who get older is if you're stout as you get older, you're happy. If you're skinny as you get older, you're very pulled in. So if you go and want to go and make a face look like a scary older person, you make it look very thin. So what I'm going to do is, in this case, I'm going to put in the kind of shadow I was doing to make my face look skinnier in the corrective makeup, but I'm going to take it to a degree that you never would in corrective makeup. I'm putting tons of shadow in here. Part of what makes us regard this as being scary is if you take all the flesh off of the bones and you have a skull, that's the shape you have left. It's going in with the jaw. There. The fleshiness is what's all gone. So the very pulled in looks like a skull. It looks like your future. And not necessarily the one you want. Christmas, a future, the ghost of Christmas future, yes. So we have this going there. Now, over the top of this, along the cheekbone highlighter that I'm going to do next, cheekbone highlighter I'm doing next, I also want to put some red, so that we get the red that is around the eyes and other parts of the face. Do that between the line, between the highlight and the shadow. However, so that that red doesn't end up looking too healthy, I'm also going to use some of the green underneath it. Put in a bit of green into the middle. The shadow. It just gives it a little bit more of an unhealthy look and carries the bits of green that you're seeing elsewhere. Now, round, happy little bouncy jowls are not going to help. However, something that I can do is I can take the parts that are the indents that pull up and emphasize those more than I go and emphasize this. So I'm going to actually make it look like it sort of connects up with the lower part there. So I'm going to put the shadow in very firmly. And then it will get pulled up and down into something more like a line. Same thing here where I feel the indentation in the bone. Put that in. It's going to connect up with the shadow on the cheek and pull down into the neck. Then I take my highlighter and I want to go and pull highlight down into this triangular format that's suggestive of a skull. I'm going to put a little here. Since I can't really get rid of the fact that I've got jowls, I'm going to go and use them as part of a connection to the area of the neck. Same thing here. Pull it down. I can even get away with a little bit of turning this into lines. On an extremely thin person who doesn't have this extra fat and jowls, you sometimes get a series of little lines coming up. I can't probably fake that and have that be convincing on my face, but you may find you want to, because it may work just fine for you. So, pulling that up there. Now, if I was going to do the neck for this, which again, if you can get away with doing as little neck as possible, your costumer will thank you. And in most probability, if you are a costumer and somebody is having to make up like this, you want to weigh, if at all possible, that you can cover the neck so that they don't have to do that. If, however, you must do the neck, you're doing an older person and you're having to partly undress that part of you, you will go and choose the things that are the vertical lines this time. So I'm going to do my finding these tendons, and what I'm going to do is, this is uncomfortable. Well, find where those lines are. And the bone right there that you can feel. Collarbone is a nice, easy one to find. You don't have to do any special neck contortions to make it happen. Your windpipe here. If you're a guy, you have the Adam's apple. That really sticks out and gets even weirder looking as you get older. So you can go and make that extra strong. And then you want to go and put shadow in the hollow. We're going to put shadow down below here. And shadow in the little hollow between your collarbone and that neck tendon. And then connecting here with the space between those tendons. Connecting here with the space between the tendons. Connecting area behind your ear. This. So a lot of the vertical ones, and then either side of your windpipe. And those that can connect up with this. Use the vertical bits. Now something I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little extra dark here because I have a little bit of a double chin, and that looks round and fat and happy, which is not what I want for this lady. So, Now, sometimes you'll find when you do this that you've got too many verticals and you still want to go and put in some of the horizontals. But if you make it like this, where it's just enough to break it up, and you break it up so that it isn't the strongest part of what you're seeing, you can go and have the age show up, but this isn't the main thing you see. You mainly have that vertical. Now this one you can also use your stipple sponge for. If you're wanting to do this for a really large stage, you probably don't want to break it up with stipple. This would be lovely in an opera house for just reading to the back of the house and making something very extreme, or for a not-so-realistic play in a medium-sized theater. It would make for a very good-sized extreme makeup. If, on the other hand, you're trying to tone it down a bit, which I can't imagine you'd do this lady and tone her down a bit, but if you were wanting to get closer into the land of realism, you would knock down some of the edges. And that's pretty much it. This is extremely scary person in age. The kind of thing you do for scary witches and Baba Yaga and Ivon the Terrible's evil aunt in an opera. That kind of thing. So